Hey guys, tonight we slip into the sands of ancient Mali, where traders mastered a system so quiet you'd hear the desert wind before a single word. Picture yourself standing on a dune's edge, the Sahara stretching endlessly before you, golden grains shimmering under a relentless sun. You're wrapped in a loose indigo robe, squinting at a distant pile of salt blocks, left like an offering to some unseen merchant. No voices, no haggling, just goods swapped in silence. A dance of trust across cultures. The Sahara's not kind. Your throat's dry, and you're already missing your iced coffee. Seriously though, the patience here is wild. You're used to instant deals. Click, buy, done. These traders waited hours, sometimes days, for a response. You're feeling the sun's heat now, your shadow shrinking as noon creeps closer. Its brutal sands meant only the toughest caravans loaded with salt, gold, or ivory made it through. The air's so dry it crackles, and you're squinting at the horizon, where heat shimmers blur the dunes. And sparse trees, perfect for laying out goods without anyone sneaking up. You're picturing those caravans rolling in from the north, their camels groaning under salt slabs mined in Tagaza, a place so salty even the walls were built from it. You're watching the gold pouch, wondering if the salt traders will bite. A shadow moves behind a baobab. Someone's out there eyeing the deal. Your heart picks up, but you're staying calm, sinking into the desert's slow pulse. The Sahara is not just a backdrop. It's the reason this system exists, shaping every choice, every step. You're starting to feel like a trader yourself, scanning the horizon for the next move in this quiet game. The gold, though? That's coming from the south, from Mali's bambuk mines, where you'd be panning dust from rivers if you weren't here playing desert detective. The Sahara's edge made these trades possible, forcing everyone to play nice or at least play quiet. You notice more piles, now dried dates, copper bars, even a stack of kola nuts wrapped in leaves. Each pile's got its own vibe, like a silent flea market. You're tempted to poke around, but you're learning the rules. Touch nothing until the other side responds. The Wangara traders, those gold experts, chose spots like this to avoid tribal turf wars. You're restarting to respect their hustle. Imagine running a business where your only feedback is a pile of stuff left under a tree. The Sahara's edge isn't all sand. There's scrubby grass, thorny acacias, and the occasional baobab tree, its fat trunk looking like it's hoarding water for a decade. You're heading toward a trade spot near the Niger River, but the desert's still king here. It's why salt was gold's equal without it. You'd collapse from dehydration faster than you can say bad life choice. A quick joke. If you tried crossing the Sahara without salt tablets, you'd be a human raisin by Tuesday. This wasn't a casual stroll. You're talking weeks of travel, with water so scarce you're licking dew off your tent by day 3. The silent barter worked because no one had energy for arguments after that trek. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some traders marked their goods with dyed feathers, red for salt, blue for gold like ancient post-it notes. Imagine spotting a crimson feather fluttering on a salt slab, a splash of color in this beige world. Historians still argue whether these feathers were just markers or held spiritual meaning, maybe a plea for safe travels. The clearing's still empty, but you sense eyes watching from the scrubby trees. Another group's out there, sizing up the gold pouch. Will they take it? Add more salt? You're hooked, aren't you? This quiet game of trust is oddly soothing, like watching a chess match with higher stakes. But you're starting to get why this system worked. Mali's not just sand, it's a crossroads of empires, connecting North Africa's salt mines to sub-Saharan gold fields. You're at the edge of something huge, a network that'll shape history. The silent barter's just getting started, and you're already wondering how anyone pulled this off without a single word. Words can spark fights, misunderstand one phrase, and suddenly you're in a feud over a sack of grain. Silence, that's neutral ground. The pouch of gold dust from that Berber trader, remember him? It's untouched, waiting for its silent partner to make a move. You're starting to feel the rhythm of this wordless dance. But let's step back and zoom out. You're not just in any desert. You're at the Sahara's southern fringe, where Mali's silent barter system thrived because of geography's quirks. The desert's edge was a natural meeting point, a blurry line where nomads, farmers, and gold traders collided without needing a common tongue. You're watching a Berber trader approach, his camel's load swaying. He inspects the salt pile you're near, nods, and leaves a small pouch of gold dust. No eye contact, no small talk. You're half expecting him to haggle like your uncle at a flea market, but nope, silence reigns. This is the world of silent barter, and honestly, you probably wouldn't survive a day without shouting your price for a loaf of bread. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I love picturing where you're drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the 9th century, Mali's heart pulsing with trade. The silent barter system, born in this era, is like nothing you've seen. Merchants from different tribes, some herding cattle, others hauling gold meat without speaking. Why? Language barriers? Sure. But also a deep cultural choice to avoid conflict. You're trudging across hot sand, your sandals sinking, noticing a clearing where goods are laid out. Salt slabs, gold nuggets, maybe a stack of dried fish. No one's around. It's eerie, like a market abandoned midday. You'd be tempted to grab something and bolt, but that's not how this works. The Wangara Mali's gold traders perfected this. They'd leave their goods, retreat, and wait for others to respond with theirs. If the offer's fair, they take it and leave. If not, they adjust and try again. It's like texting your friend Kay and hoping they get the hint. Here's a solid fact. This system thrived because Mali sat on gold mines, literal veins of wealth under the earth. The Wangara knew their nuggets were power, but they didn't flaunt it. Instead, they built trust with silence. Now, for something quirkier, some traders left tiny clay figurines as signatures with their goods, like a medieval business card. No one's sure if these were for luck or identity, but imagine finding one half buried in the sand, a little face staring up at you. Historians still argue whether these figurines were purely symbolic or a proto-currency. Whatever they meant, you're holding one now, its edges worn smooth, wondering who last touched it. You're not just standing there gawking, though. The air smells of dust and distant rain, and you hear a faint drumbeat communication, not music. Let us toss in a light joke. If you tried this system at a modern farmer-s market, you'd probably end up with a zucchini and no change. As you stand there, the desert's vastness sinks in. You're still standing at the edge of that Saharan clearing, the sun baking your shoulders, the pile of salt blocks glinting like oversized sugar cubes. Here's a bedrock fact. The Sahara acted as a massive trade filter. You're trudging now, following a faint path worn by centuries of sandals and camel hooves. The clearing you're at isn't random. It's a neutral zone. Picked for its flat ground, you hear a faint hum, not drums this time, but the wind whistling through acacia branches. It's soothing, like nature's white noise machine. Let's toss in another joke. If you tried silent barter at a modern mall, you'd probably get arrested for loitering. But here, patience is currency. You're back at that Saharan clearing, the gold pouch still sitting pretty beside those salt blocks. A silent deal in progress. The desert's heat is relentless, prickling your neck, but you're getting the hang of this quiet trade game. Their signals weren't random. They were precise, almost like a proto-Morse code. The Wangara's code wasn't just knots. They used piles of stones, arranged in odd shapes, circles, triangles, sometimes a wonky square. Seriously, though, the Wangara's signals were genius. You're picturing them huddled miles away, debating which signal to use next. Their code protected their gold-s source. Bamboo mines we mentioned, because spilling that secret could sparked raids. You're kicking at the sand, unearthing a tiny clay bead, another Wangara trick. These beads, sometimes buried near piles, marked ownership. You're holding it, rolling its smooth surface, wondering if it's a good luck charm or a back-off warning. Either way, it's cool against your palm, a tiny piece of this quiet empire. They didn't need words when a bent twig or a feather stuck in the dirt could say deal us off. You're watching the clearing, noticing a new, knot on a nearby frond 2 loops, not 3. Someone's replied to the gold pouch, and the game's moving fast. Your pulse quickens, but the desert's calm seeps into you, slowing your breath. The Wangara's code wasn't just about trade. It was about trust, patience, and reading the land's subtle cues. You're hooked, waiting to see what signal comes next in this wordless dance. You're imagining a Wangara trader, robe flapping, adjusting a stone pile with the focus of a chess master. These signals kept things fair, letting traders from different tribes like the Berbers or Sunning sync up without a shared language. You're starting to see the clearing as a giant game board. Each pile and not a move in a high-stakes match. Spot one now. 5 stones in a crescent near the gold pouch. It's not art. It's a message. Maybe saying, we're back in 2 days. Or add more salt. You're itching to rearrange them just to mess with someone, but you're not that bold. The air smells of warm sand and faint camel musk, and you hear a distant bird call, sharp and quick. Is that another signal? You're paranoid now, scanning for movement. Now, for something quirkier, some Wangara traders tied specific knots in palm fronds to mark their piles. Each knot pattern signaling quantity or quality like a leafy barcode. You're fingering one now, a frayed frond with 3 tight loops, wondering if it means top-grade gold or don't lowball me. Historians still argue whether these knots were standardized across Wangara groups or unique to each family, a debate that keeps scholars up at night. Now let's zero in on the Wangara Malis, gold trading wizards, and their sneaky way of communicating without a word. You're crouching near a thorny bush, watching for their next move, because these folks didn't just leave goods and hope for the best. They had a secret code, a system of signals that kept this barter humming like a well-oiled machine. Here's a core fact. The Wangara, a tight-knit trading clan, controlled Mali's gold flow from the 9th to 15th centuries. Using silent barter to link sub-Saharan Africa with North African markets. You're squinting across the clearing, the sun casting long shadows from a lone baobab. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried using stone piles to text your friends, you'd probably get ghosted by lunch. The Wangara weren't just clever, they were secretive. Here's another light jab. If your boss used silent signals like this, you'd probably miss your performance review. But for the Wangara, silence was power. You're still crouched in that Saharan clearing, the knot-tied palm, frond, and stone crescent from the Wangara's code glinting in your mind. The gold pouch and salt blocks haven't budged, but the air feels charged, like the deal's about to shift. Let's pivot to the star of this silent barter. Salt, and it's heavier than it looks, warm from the sun, and smells faintly of earth. The Sahara's heat is relentless, sucking moisture from your skin, and you're starting to get why salt matters. Someone's upping the ante. You're starting to feel the clearing's pulse, the silent back and forth that keeps Mali's trade alive. Seriously though, salt's value shaped every deal in this clearing. You're watching the horizon, where a camel's silhouette sways, maybe bringing more salt or checking the gold. The desert's vastness hums around you, and you're sinking into its rhythm, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat. Salt wasn't just a good, it was a bond, tying traders together across tribes and terrains. You're ready to see how this deal plays out, aren't you? The clearing's quiet, but the stakes are high. The Wangara didn't just trade salt. They revered it, sometimes offering pinches to spirits for safe journeys. You're half tempted to toss some over your shoulder for luck. But you're not sure if that S.A. Mali thing, or just your superstition acting up. Without it, you'd be dizzy, muscles cramping, maybe hallucinating a Starbucks by now. You're imagining traders collapsing without salt to replenish what the desert stole. The gold pouch nearby. It's valuable, sure, but salt keeps you standing. You're noticing the clearing's other piles dates. Ivory, cloth butt salt's the king here. The one good everyone wants. You're staring at those rough, milky slabs stacked like oversized dice, wondering why they're treated like treasure. In Mali's world, salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was life worth its weight in gold. Sometimes more. You're about to learn why this dusty clearing is a battleground for a mineral UD sprinkle on fries without a thought. Here's a solid fact. In the medieval Sahel, salt was a currency because it preserved food and kept people alive in the Sahara's brutal heat. Traders hauled it from northern mines like Tagaza, where entire buildings were carved from salt, to Mali's gold-rich south, for a quirky tidbit. Some traders licked salt slabs to test purity. A risky move considering camel sweat might have splashed them en route. But in Mali, that swap was legit. You're picturing a Wangara trader, eyes narrowed, weighing a salt slab against gold dust with a tiny bronze scale.
Oh.
The balance tips, and he nods, satisfied. This wasn't just economics, it was survival. Salt preserved fish and meat in a world without fridges, letting villages stockpile food for lean seasons. You're smelling the faint temps of dried tilapia from a nearby pile, mixed with the desert's dusty breeze. It's oddly comforting, like a campfire's lingering smoke. You're grimacing, picturing yourself tonguing a gritty block, hoping it's not a camel's finest hour. Historians still argue whether salt's value came purely from scarcity, or if its near mythical status in Mali's culture inflated its price. Think diamonds, but edible. You're kneeling now, running your fingers over a salt slab's crusty edge. Let us slip in a joke. If you tried trading salt for gold at a grocery store, you'd get some serious side-eye. You're standing, brushing sand off your robe, and noticing a new pile more salt, this time with a red feather tucked in, like the ones we saw earlier. Here's another light jab. If you forgot salt on a Saharan trek, you'd be begging for a Gatorade sponsorship. You're still in that Saharan clearing. The salt slabs and gold pouch locked in their silent standoff, a red feather signaling someone's raised the stakes. The desert air is thick, carrying the faint scent of dried fish and warm sand. And you're starting to feel like a trader yourself, eyes darting for the next move. The air's humid, smelling of mud and wet reeds, and you hear the soft creak of a canoe gliding past. But here the system's tight. You're watching a Sinaic trader, his robe damp, unload salt slabs from a canoe. It's like the ones we saw in the desert, linking these markets to the Wangara's network. The river's flow is hypnotic, slowing your breath. You're wondering how traders kept track without a single handshake. The answer's in the signals, those cords, stones, feathers. You spot a raft drifting in, its owner gone, leaving cowrie shells heaped high. Someone's eyeing it from the reeds, ready to respond. The silence feels alive, a conversation in objects. He sets them near the copper, adds a green feather, and paddles off. Seriously, though, the Niger's markets were Mali's pulse, moving goods that fed empires. You're feeling the river's pull, its current tugging at your thoughts like it tugged at those rafts. The desert's still close, its dry heat lingering, but the river's a new world, lush and alive. You're hooked on this quiet trade, watching the next move unfold, the water's gentle slosh blending with the desert's hum. The Niger's markets are calling, let's see what they trade next. No words, no fuss. You're starting to admire the efficiency. Imagine your group chat running this smoothly. The Niger's markets worked because the river connected everyone. Salt from the north, gold from the south, even ivory from deeper forests. You're noticing more rafts now, some with cloth bundles, others with fishnets drying in the sun. The market's alive but eerily quiet, no haggling. Just traders unloading goods and retreating. You spot a pile of copper bars, another of dried sorghum, each marked with a knotted cord or a clay bead, echoes of the Wangara's desert code. You're tempted to dip your toes in the river, but a crocodile's lazy splash reminds you to stay sharp. The scene's chaotic yet calm, like a busy cafe, where everyone's whispering. Let's follow the trail to the Niger River, where silent barter wasn't just a desert thing, it thrived on bustling, wordless riverbank markets. You're trudging toward the water now, the horizon shimmering where the Sahara's edge meets the river's green fringe, ready to see how Mali's traders turn these banks into hubs of quiet commerce. Here's a grounded fact. The Niger River was Mali's lifeline. Its bends hosting trade markets from the 10th century that linked desert nomads with forest farmers. These riverbank exchanges used the same silent barter as the desert, but with a twist, boats and canoes replaced camels. Now, for a quirky detail, some traders floated their goods on reed rafts, leaving them anchored with painted stones as markers, like a medieval version of curbside pickup. You're picturing a bobbing raft, piled with cola nuts, a bright blue stone glinting in the current. Historians still argue whether these stones were purely practical or carried spiritual weight, maybe warding off river spirits. You're at the riverbank now, the Niger's water lapping at your sandals, cool against the desert's heat. Here's a quick joke. If you tried silent barter at a modern dock, you'd probably end up with someone else's Amazon package. You're crouching by the water, fingering a clay bead from a nearby pile, its surface etched with tiny lines. Let's toss in another jab. If your boss ran meetings like this, you'd actually get some work done. You're still by the Niger River, the water's gentle slosh mixing with the humid air. That pile of cowrie shells on the raft glinting under the sun. The silent barter's pulse is strong here, with goods like copper bars and sorghum piles trading hands. Or rather, hands through signals like that green feather you saw. This wasn't blind optimism, was a system built on reputation and repeat deals. The air smells of wet clay and faint wood smoke, and you're starting to feel the weight of trust in this quiet market. Imagine leaving your wallet on a park bench, expecting someone to swap it for groceries and not run off. It's a reminder of the Wangara's code knots, feathers, stones all built to reinforce trust. But for Molly's traders, trust wasn't optional, it was survival. You're watching the riverbank, noticing more goods. Ivory tusks, a stack of millet. Each pile's a promise, a bet that someone will play fair. The desert's heat lingers in the distance, but the river's cool breeze soothes you, slowing your pulse. Trust made these markets hum, turning strangers into partners without a word. You're sinking into the scene, the Niger's flow carrying you deeper into this quiet world of faith and trade. You're imagining a trader's mental checklist. Leave goods, set signal, pray no one's a jerk. Niger's markets were a trust network, linking tribes who'd never meet face to face. You hear a soft splash of fish, maybe, and it snaps you back. The raft's owner might return soon, checking if the cloth's a fair swap. You're invested now, rooting for the deal to stick. Oh, you'd be sweating bullets, right? But here, traders did it daily. You're picturing a Wangara merchant, miles away, trusting that Berber trader remember his gold pouch, won't shortchange the salt deal. It's wild. Like Venmo, without the app, built on vibes and honor. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some traders left small offerings like a single cola nut beside their goods. Maybe as a goodwill gesture or a charm for honest dealing. You're spotting one now, a lone nut tucked near the salt slabs, its brown shell cracked open. Historians still argue whether these offerings were purely symbolic or a subtle bribe to keep things fair, a debate that's as old as the trade itself. Let us linger on the riverbank and dive into the glue that held this wordless system together. Trust. You're watching traders move like ghosts, leaving goods and vanishing. And you're wondering how anyone could trade across tribes, languages, and miles without a single handshake or contract. Seriously, though, trust was Molly's secret sauce. You're noticing the cowrie shell pile again, untouched, its owner long gone. Another trader's approaching, slow and deliberate, inspecting it with a nod. He adds a bundle of dyed cloth, steps back, and melts into the reeds. No one's stealing, no one's shouting. You're half expecting a fight to break out, like at a Black Friday sale, but the silence holds. The system worked because everyone knew cheating could tank their rep, blacklisting them from future trades. Spoiler, it's all about faith in the system. Here's a solid fact. Molly's silent barter relied on mutual trust. A cultural norm that let strangers trade without meeting, from the 9th century onward. You're sitting on the riverbank, reeds brushing your elbows, the Niger's current tugging at a nearby raft. Toss in a joke. If you tried this trust system with your roommates, you'd be out of pizza by noon. You're fingering that clay bead from last time, its etched lines cool against your skin. Here's another light jab. If your Wi-Fi had this level of trust, you'd never buffer again. You're still perched on that Niger riverbank, the cool water lapping at the reeds, the pile of cowrie shells and dyed cloth locked in their silent negotiation. That lone cola nut you spotted, remember it? It's like a quiet promise of trust, tying this market together. And dried fish fueling trade networks from the 9th to 15th centuries. Each item had its own value, shaped by scarcity and need. But here, every good mattered. You're imagining a Wangara trader, his camel groaning, unloading gold dust to pair with those salt slabs we saw ages ago. A tiny clay figurine like the ones from the desert sits beside it, maybe a trader's signature. Seriously, though, these piles kept Molly alive, linking deserts to forests under moonlight's glow. But you're feeling the river's pull, its current matching the slow rhythm of trade. The goods tell a story of need and ingenuity, each stack a bet on tomorrow. A low, steady beat rolls in from the trees, thump plump, like a heartbeat in the dark. It's not music. It's a trader signaling check the pile to someone miles away. It feels like a link to the drums, another layer of this silent world. The beats roll on, now slow and steady, like a lullaby. You're sinking into them, the river's flow syncing with the sound. Drumming wasn't just practical. It was art, tying tribes together when words couldn't. You spot a new signal, a single beat, sharp and final. Someone's accepted a deal, maybe the dyed cloth for the shells. Your pulse quickens. But the night's calm keeps you grounded, the drum's echo fading into the stars. You're straining to listen, your ears pricking at each shift in rhythm. Sounds hypnotic, pulling you deeper into the night. You're imagining a Wangara drummer, his hands blurring, sending word that the gold dust back in the desert. Remember that pouch? Needs more salt? It's like Morse code, but with soul. You're hooked, aren't you? Waiting to see what the next trader leaves in this quiet, moonlit dance. You're noticing the cowrie shell pile again, its knotted chords swaying as a breeze picks up. The drumming stops, then starts again faster, sharper. It steals good, or had more cloth. Seriously, though, these rhythms were Molly's lifeline, carrying trust across the dark. You're feeling the riverbank's quiet energy, the piles waiting for their next move.
Ow.
The drums aren't just noise, they're the voice of trade, guiding goods from hand to hand without a word. You're ready for the next beat, aren't you? Leaning into the night's slow pulse, wondering what the drums will say next. You're no expert, but you're hooked, trying to crack the code. The Niger's markets relied on these beats to keep things moving, letting traders stay hidden while talking loud. You're picturing a canoe gliding in, its owner guided by the rhythm, ready to check the ivory tusks. You're rolling it in your palm, its weight grounding you. The river's soft gurgle mixes with a distant owl hoot, and you're sinking into the scene. These goods weren't just stuff. They were lifelines, moving food, tools, and beauty across Molly's empire. You spot a new pile millet grains in woven baskets, marked with a knotted cord. Someone's out there, watching, ready to respond. The trust we talked about. It's holding strong, even in the dark. The moonlight makes the gold sparkle almost magical. But it's the dried fish pile that's got your attentions. Melly, but vital for villages without rivers. You're wrinkling your nose, picturing your attempt to cook fish jerky going very wrong. And ivory tusks glowing softly, each marked with cords or figurines like the ones you've been clutching. The river's gentle gurgle is your soundtrack. And that ostrich feather you spotted tucked beside the copper bars flutters like it's winking at you. Now let's tune into a different kind of signal, one that cuts through the silence without a single word. Drumming. You're about to hear how Molly's traders used rhythms to talk across distances, replacing spoken deals with beats that echoed through the night. It's like the desert's own text alerts, but way cooler. The variety here's insane, like a medieval Costco, but quieter. These weren't random beats. They mimicked speech rhythms, a skill mastered by griots and traders alike. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some drummers carve tiny symbols into their drumsticks, like a spiral or a crescent, supposedly to charge the sound with luck. You're picturing a weathered stick, its spiral glinting in firelight, as a trader taps out a message. Historians still argue whether these carvings were decorative or held ritual meaning, a puzzle that keeps the drum's role mysterious. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some traders included ostrich feathers in their piles. Not for fashion, but as lightweight filler to balance deals, like tossing in a few napkins to sweeten a trade. You're picturing a fluffy feather tucked beside a copper bar, fluttering in the night breeze. Historians still argue whether these feathers were a status symbol or just practical. A debate that keeps the feathers' role a bit of a mystery. Now, let's shift to the goods themselves. The treasures left under moonlight in these wordless deals. You're about to unpack what traders hauled across deserts and rivers, piling their hopes in neat stacks for others to claim. It's not just salt and gold anymore. The variety's wild, and you're itching to poke through the offerings like a kid at a flea market. Here's a core fact. Molly's silent barter moved a dizzying array of good salt, gold, copper, ivory, cola nuts, cloth. You're standing now, brushing mud off your robe, the moonlight casting shadows across the riverbank. The air's cooler, smelling of damp earth and faint jasmine from a nearby bush. You're circling the piles, each one a snapshot of Molly's world. There's a stack of cola nuts, wrapped in damp leaves to stay fresh, their bitter tang, a favorite for chewing. Nearby, a bundle of indigo-dyed cloth glows deep blue, probably from a sonic weaver's hands. You're tempted to unfurl it, but you know the rules hands off. The ivory tusks catch your eye, heavy and smooth, traded from forest tribes deep south. Each pile's a story left under the stars for someone to answer. Let us slip in a joke. If you tried trading ostrich feathers at a modern swap meet, you'd probably get a used vape pen in return. You're crouching by a pile of copper bars, their green patina cool under your fingers. Here's another light jab. If your grocery list was this diverse, you'd need a camel to get home. You're still on that moonlit Niger riverbank, the piles of cola nuts, indigo cloth. Here's a solid fact. In Mali's silent barter system, from the 9th century onward, traders used drum patterns to signal trade moves. Think goods ready, or deal accepted across rivers and deserts. You're sitting cross-legged now, the riverbank's mud cool beneath you, the air thick with the scent of wet reeds and distant smoke. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried drumming your grocery list, your neighbors would probably call the cops. But here, drums were everything. You're fingering that clay figurine from the copper pile, its edges worn smooth. Here's another light jab. If your group chat had drums, you'd never miss a meme. You're still on that Niger riverbank, the moonlight painting the cowrie shells in indigo cloth and soft silvers. The echo of those drum beats thump, thump, thump fading into the reeds. That clay figurine in your hand feels like a tiny anchor, tying you to this quiet trade world. Accuracy was everything too little, and you'd insult your trade partner. Too much, and you'd go broke. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some traders sprinkled gold dust into tiny calabash gourds, sealed with beeswax to prevent spills, like medieval Tupperware for millionaires. You're picturing one now, its wax cap cracked, gold glinting inside like a secret, next to the scale. It's got 3 tight loops, maybe saying gold's ready. Seriously though, the care here is wild. You're watching the trader pack up his scale tucked into a leather pouch. The clearing's quiet, but the gold's glow lingers, a promise of wealth waiting for a response. The desert's vastness presses in, stars sharp overhead, and you're sinking into the slow rhythm of trade. The air's crisp, your breath visible, and you're clutching a wool cloak against the night chill. Camels grunt, their silhouettes hulking, loaded with salt slabs and cloth bundles. You're dodging a pile of camel dung gross, but it's part of the gig. The lead camel's bell jingles, steady and low, guiding you through the dunes. You're squinting at the stars, trying to spot the North Star like the traders did, but you're no astronomer. Honestly, you'd be lost without that bell. Measuring gold wasn't just a task, it was a ritual, tying every pile to Mali's heart. But these traders were pros. You're watching a cynic guide, his turban loose, scanning the horizon for a familiar rock formation. He points, and the caravan adjusts. No words needed. You're carrying a small sackful of nuts, maybe for the next trade, and it's heavier than you expected. The caravan's rhythm is slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat, and you're sinking into it. You're picturing the desert clearing ahead, where you'll leave your goods. Maybe with a red feather like the ones we've seen. You're ready to see if the salt traders bite, aren't you? The caravan's not just about moving stuff, it's a lifeline, linking Mali's gold to North Africa's markets. You hear a soft drumbeat in the distance. Remember those signals? Maybe a trader announcing their arrival. The camels plod on their bells a constant chime, and you're wondering how anyone survived this trek without Spotify. The stars are sharp, the dunes endless, and you're feeling small but connected, part of something vast. The trader sets the gourd beside the salt slabs, the ones with that red feather from ages ago. Seriously though, these caravans were Mali's arteries pumping wealth through the desert. You're nearing an oasis now, palms shadowy against the sky, where the next barter might happen. The bells jingle slows, and your pulse matches the caravan's pace, steady and calm. This journey's not just about goods, it's about endurance, trust, and the stars above. You're ready to reach that clearing, aren't you, to see what the next silent deal holds? The Wangara trader's gone, leaving that knotted palm frond 3 tight loops as a signal beside the salt slabs. These treks could take weeks, with traders facing heat, thirst, and bandits. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some camel drivers tied bells to their lead camels. The jingle acting as a homing beacon in sandstorms, like a medieval GPS with better vibes. You're hearing a faint tinkle now, a bell cutting through the desert's hush. Historians still argue whether these bells were purely practical or also scared off desert spirits, a debate that adds a mystical edge to the journey. The air's cool now, smelling of dry sand and faint camel musk, and you're feeling the weight of that precise gold measurement in your bones. Let's hit the road, or rather. The Sandan join a caravan crossing the Sahara under a starlit sky. You're trudging with traders and camels, their loads swaying as they haul goods to the next silent barter. It's a long, slow journey, and you're about to feel every step. The deal's moving, and you're feeling the weight of each choice. Gold dust wasn't just currency. It fed Mali's empire, buying loyalty, building mosques, and drawing traders from as far as Morocco. You're picturing a king in Timbuktu, his throne gleaming with this very dust, while you're out here in the dirt. Historians still argue whether these gourds were just containers or doubled as a status flex, showing off a trader's wealth. Now, let's zoom in on the gold dust that started this whole deal, back in that desert clearing. You're about to learn how Mali's traders measured this glittering treasure with obsessive precision, turning pinches of dust into the lifeblood of empires. But here, precision was life. You're watching the trader adjust the scale, adding a single seed, his face calm but focused. Those scales weren't fancy simple beams with pans, but they were calibrated to perfection. You're imagining the math. 1 carob seed equals a fraction of a gram, and a good deal might mean 200 seeds worth of dust. It's tedious, like counting grains of rice, but it kept the silent barter fair. You're noticing a calabash gourd nearby, its wax seal intact, probably holding the next batch. It's not just shiny stuff. It's a science, and you're standing at the heart of it. Here's a core fact. Gold dust, sourced from Mali's bamboo and beer mines, is weighed using intricate bronze scales and standardized seeds, like the carob or kola, from the 9th century onward. You're back in the desert clearing for a moment. The rivers hum a distant memory. The air's dry, smelling of dust and faint acacia sap, and you're squinting at a Wangara trader hunched over a small scale. His fingers move like a jeweler's, balancing a pile of gold dust against a stack of kola seeds. The scale's bronze arm wobbles and you're holding your breath, half expecting him to sneeze and ruin the deal. The moonlight catches the gold, making it sparkle like a tiny galaxy. You're tempted to dip your finger in, but you know better. This isn't glitter, it's power. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried weighing gold dust at home, you'd probably end up with cat hair in the mix. You're kneeling now, the sand gritty under your knees, and you spot a knotted palm frond. Remember those Wangar signals? Here's another light jab. If your bank account was measured in kola seeds, you'd be eating a lot of cereal. You're back in that desert clearing, the moonlight glinting off the calabash gourd of gold dust, its wax seal catching the stars. Here's a solid fact. Saharan caravans, often 1,000 camels strong, carried Mali's trade goods, gold, salt, ivory across hundreds of miles from the 9th century, navigating by stars and landmarks. You're walking now, sandals sinking into the sand, the caravan stretching ahead like a dark ribbon under the Milky Way. Let us toss in a joke. If you tried navigating the Sahara with your phone's GPS, you'd be circling a cactus by now. You're fingering that clay figurine from the riverbank, tucked in your pocket, its smooth edges calming your nerves. Here's another light jab. If your commute was this long, you'd demand a camel with cuff folders. You're still trudging with that Saharan caravan, camel bells jingling softly, the starlit dunes stretching endlessly around you, the clay figurine in your pocket to remember it from the riverbank, and harmony among diverse tribes like the Wangara, Sanink, and Berbers. The stars are blinding, and you're feeling the weight of Mali's culture in this quiet. You're imagining a Wangara elder years ago, teaching young traders to move softly, speak less, and trust the goods to talk. It's a piece of this culture, maybe a trader's way of saying, I'm one of you. You're standing, brushing sand off your cloak, the caravan lurching forward. The oasis is close, its palms swaying, promising water and maybe a new barter. The clay figurine in your pocket feels warm, a reminder of Mali's deep cultural roots that made silent barter more than just a trade trick. Let's shift focus to the women who shape these markets, often overlooked but quietly steering the flow of goods. The caravan settled, camels kneeling, and you're wandering toward a clearing where goods are piled millet, ivory, and a stack of woven mats. You spot a pile of kola nuts, wrapped in leaves with a green-dyed cord tied around it. A woman's work? Likely she's not here, but her presence lingers. You're imagining her robe tucked, sorting nuts with quick fingers, her patterned cloth a quiet boast of skill. The moonlight catches the cord, and you're wondering if that wave pattern's hidden somewhere in her goods. You're about to meet the female traders and weavers who brought kola nuts, cloth and savvy to the silent barter, their hands as vital as any Wangar's gold dust. But these women were masters. You're kneeling by the kola nuts, their bitter scent sharp. Women's roles weren't just economic, they were cultural, passing down trade secrets to daughters. You hear a soft rustling, a mother trader, maybe a woman, adjusting a millet pile across the clearing. She moves with purpose, setting a knotted chord 2 loops, not 3, and vanishes. The oasis hums with quiet energy, and you're starting to see how women shaped its pulse. They weren't just in the background. They were the backbone, their goods and signals driving the silent dance. And noticing a nearby cloth piled deep blue, with a faint zigzag at the edge. It's her signature, a silent "I made this." You're standing, brushing sand off your robe, the oasis's palms whispering overhead. The stars are sharp, and you're sinking into the scene, the piles of goods a testament to women's hustle. They traded, wove, and signaled, their patterns and chords as precise as the Wangar's gold scales. You're hooked, aren't you? Watching for the next move in this moonlit market, wondering what other secrets these women left behind. Women didn't just trade, they crafted the goods that kept markets alive. You're picturing a Mandinka weaver, her loom clacking, turning cotton into wealth. She'd barter her cloth for salt or copper, her deals as sharp as any man's, all without a word. It's a new angle on this quiet world, and you're stepping right into their domain. The stars seem to pulse with Molly's heartbeat, and you're sinking into its rhythm, slow, deliberate, rooted in trust. Their economic clout was real, often independent of men. Now for a quirky tidbit, some women traders wove tiny patterns into their cloth bundle spirals or zigzags as secret signatures, a way to mark their goods without breaking the silence. You're picturing a vibrant indigo cloth, its corners stitched with a subtle wave pattern, fluttering in the oasis breeze. Historians still argue whether these patterns were purely personal or signaled trade alliances, a question that keeps their role intriguing. Silent barter wasn't just trade. It was a way of life, and you're ready to see how it unfolds at the oasis, aren't you? The caravan's ready to move, the lead camel's bell tingling, but you're lost in thought. Silence wasn't just a trick, it was a belief, tying tribes to the land and each other. You hear a faint drumbeat, those trade signals again, rolling from the oasis ahead. It's a reminder that this system grew from Molly's soul, not just its minds. You're picturing villages where kids learn to trade quietly, mimicking their elders, keeping the cycle alive. It's not just about avoiding fights, it's about respect. You're noticing the caravans, mixed urban Berbers, robed Sanic, each group keeping to itself, but united by the barter's rules. It's like a family reunion where everyone's politely avoiding politics. Silence avoided conflicts over language or custom, making trade a neutral space. You're watching a trader adjust a pile of ivory, his movements slow, almost ritualistic. He adds a knotted chord 3 loops like the ones we saw ages ago, and steps back. The act feels heavy, like he's honoring something bigger than the trade. Molly's culture valued community over ego, and silent barter let everyone play fair without showing off. You're restarting to get why that kola nut offering by the river felt like more than a snack. It was a nod to tradition. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some tribes believed speaking during trade could jinx the deal, so they used silence as a kind of spiritual shield, like knocking on wood but quieter. You're picturing a trader, lips sealed, setting down a pile of kola nuts with a reverent nod. Duh. Historians still argue whether this silence was purely pragmatic or tied to animist beliefs about spirits judging dishonest deals. A debate that keeps the system's origins hazy is a small comfort as your sandals sink into the cool sand. The oasis is close, its palm shadows looming. But before we reach it, let's pause to dig into the cultural roots of Molly's silent barter. You re-about to see why this wordless trade was indeed just practical but woven into the very fabric of Molly's tribes, a tradition deeper than gold or salt. It's a story of values, not just goods, and you're standing at its heart. Here's a core fact. Silent barter emerged in Mali by the 9th century. Rooted in cultural practices that prize discretion, you're sitting now. The caravan paused near a dune's crest, the air crisp with the scent of dry grass and faint camel sweat. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried silent trading at Thanksgiving, you'd still get stuck with the dishes. But here, silence was sacred. You're fingering that clay figurine again, its etched lines grounding you. Here's another light jab. If your office ran on Molly's vibes, meetings would be blissfully mute. Seriously though, this culture shaped empires. You're nearing the oasis now, the caravan's camel bells jingling faintly. The palm trees' silhouettes swaying against a star-drenched sky, Here's a core fact. Women in medieval Mali, particularly from Soninke and Mandinka tribes, were active in trade from the 9th century, managing goods like textiles and kola nuts in silent barter markets. You're at the oasis now, the air cooler, smelling of damp earth and sweet dates. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried weaving your signature into a scarf, you'd probably tangle your whole wardrobe. You're fingering that clay figurine again, its etched lines like a distant echo of those woven patterns. Here's another light jab. If your group project had Mali's women, you'd actually hit the deadline. Seriously though, their work was vital. You're lingering at that oasis, the palm trees rustling softly, the moonlight glinting off the kola nut pile with its green cord, and that subtle zigzag cloth pattern from a woman trader's hand. Okay, an intellectual center, its markets thriving on silent barter goods like gold, salt, and manuscripts, drawing traders from across Africa and beyond. The city hums camels groan, sandals shuffle, but the barter stays silent. But here, it's seamless. A drumbeat rolls nearby, not the trade signals from the river, but a griot warming up, hinting at stories to come. The city's markets weren't just about goods. They traded ideas, with scholars bartering manuscripts for salt. You spot a pile of books, their leather covers worn, a white pebble gleaming on top. It's wild knowledge as currency swapped without a word. He's eyeing a pile of gold dust, marked with a red pebble, his brow furrowed. You can tell he's itching to shout an offer, but the silence holds him back. He sets down a bundle of silk, adds a small mirror. Yep. One of those and steps away, glancing nervously. You're half expecting him to break and start bargaining like he's in a Marrakesh souk. But he doesn't. The air smells of dust and roasted millet. And you hear a camel's low grunt nearby, blending with the city's quiet buzz. You're sinking into the city's rhythm, the hum of trade and learning pulling you along like a current. You're imagining a Venetian merchant, his velvet cloak absurdly out of place, puzzling over a kola nut pile with a green cord. He's used to coin and contracts, not this trust-based game. You're noticing more outsiders, Egyptians with papyrus scrolls, Tuareg with silver jewelry, all playing by Mali's rules. The Moroccan's mirror catches your eye again, winking in the light. It's a bold move, but will it work? You're rooting for him, even if he looks like he's sweating through his robe? You're watching a cynic trader inspect a gold dust pile, his fingers hovering, then setting down a stack of kola nuts with a red pebble. A drumbeat pulses faintly, maybe a griot, not a trade signal, and it reminds you of the rhythms that guided these markets. Foreigners had to learn fast. Knots, pebbles, feathers, silence. You're picturing Ibn Battuta, the famous traveler, scribbling notes about this strange custom in the 14th century, probably wishing for a coffee to process it all. The outsider's awe is palpable. They retrading with an empire that docentee need their words, and it's humbling. You spot a new pile livery with a black pebble left by a Tuareg, another outsider fitting in. Seriously though, Timbuktu's glow was Mali's pride. Seriously though, these merchants' adaptation fueled Timbuktu's legend. You're walking past a salt pile, its red feather a nod to the desert days, feeling the city's pulse, local and foreign, silent but loud with ambition. The sun's dipping, casting long shadows, and you're sinking into the market's rhythm, the outsider's quiet awe pulling you deeper. You're hooked, aren't you, watching how they navigate this wordless world. You're pausing by a salt pile, its red feather a callback to the desert clearing ages ago. And as far as Venice, who had to learn Mali's silent barter to trade for gold and salt, often struggling with its unspoken rules. Their accounts, like Ibn Battuta's, describe the system's oddity. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some Moroccan traders used to loud haggling, left small mirrors with their goods, thinking the shiny trinkets would charm Mali traders into better deals. You're picturing a tiny mirror, glinting beside a salt slab, reflecting the desert sky. Historians still argue whether these mirrors were a clever bribe or a cultural misstep, a debate that highlights the foreigner's learning curve. The city's streets pulse with silent deals, each pebble and cord a piece of the empire's heart. The sun's high, warming your shoulders, and you're hooked, aren't you? Wandering Timbuktu's markets, ready to see what other treasures this hub holds, he steps back, vanishing into the crowd. The street's alive with these quiet deals, each pile a mini-drama. The clay figurine in your pocket, touched and worn, grounds you as the city of silent barter hums around you. Red and black pebbles marking deals like the ones you saw by the river. Now, let's focus on the outsiders, foreign merchants from North Africa, the Middle East, even Europe, who stumbled into Mali's wordless markets. You're about to see how these strangers adapted to the silent system, their awe and confusion as real as your own. It's a fresh perspective, and you're right there with them. Timbuktu's wealth came from this system, turning gold into mosques and libraries. You're picturing the Sankar University, its walls glowing, funded by the same gold dust you saw weighed with cola seeds way back in the desert. You're passing a market stall. It's not a wooden booth, but a cleared patch with piles of goods, salt slabs, copper bars, and a bundle of parchment tied with string. A black pebble sits on top, signaling ready to trade. You're tempted to pick it up, but you know the rules. Look, don't touch. The crowd's diverse, turbaned, Tuareg-robed scholars, even a few women weavers like the ones at the oasis, their cloth piles marked with green cords. It's wealth-funded legendary universities. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some Timbuktu traders used colored pebbles, red, black, white to mark their barter piles. A flashy twist on the desert's knotted cords. You're picturing a handful of smooth pebbles scattered near a stack of manuscripts gleaming in the sun. Historians still argue whether these pebbles were just markers or carried social clout like a medieval status badge. The clay figurine in your pocket feels like a quiet nod to her work, tying you to this world of silent deals. Now, let's leave the oasis and wander into Timbuktu, Mali's glittering trade hub, where silent barter fueled streets buzzing with wealth and ideas. You're about to stroll through a city that glowed with gold and learning, its markets a testament to the system's reach. Get ready for a change of pace. This place is alive. Here's a core fact. Timbuktu, by the 12th century, was a global trade. You're walking Timbuktu's dusty streets now. The air thick with the scent of spices, leather, and baked clay. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried silent barter in a modern city, you'd probably get a parking ticket for loitering. You're fingering that clay figurine, its etched lines a faint echo of Timbuktu's bustle. Here's another light jab. If your study group was this efficient, you'd have aced every exam. You're still wandering Timbuktu's bustling streets, the scent of spices and leather thick in the air, that pile of manuscripts with its white pebble catching the sun. Here's a core fact. By the 12th century, Timbuktu drew merchants from Morocco, Egypt. You're standing in Timbuktu's market now, the sun hot on your neck, watching a bearded Moroccan trader in a striped robe. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried silent trading with your loud uncle, he'd probably scare off the camels. But these foreigners adapted. You're fingering that clay figurine, its lines a quiet link to the Wangar's code. Here's another light jab. If your boss tried this silence, meetings would be over in 10 minutes. You're still in Timbuktu's bustling market, the Moroccan trader's mirror glinting beside his silk bundle, a hopeful but awkward bid to crack Mali's silent barter. The system's anonymity could backfire. Now for a quirky tidbit, some cheaters mix sand into gold dust to boost weight, a trick so common that traders started sifting piles with fine cloth before accepting. You're picturing a gritty pouch, sand grains sparkling like fake gold under the sun. A camel grunts nearby, its load swaying, and you notice a new pile millet with a red feather like the desert days. Seriously though, cheating tested Mali's markets. You're standing, brushing dust off your robe, the market's buzz softening as evening creeps in. The clay figurine in your pocket, tetched and trusty, grounds you as the market's piles of millet and copper glow faintly under the fading sun. Their stories shaped cultural memory. A griot's voice rises, low and rhythmic, backed by a chora's plucking strings. You're imagining this one, his robe loose, recounting a woman trader like the weaver with the zigzag cloth who turned a bad deal into profit with a single cord. His voice dips, mimicking her stealth, and you're grinning, picturing her outfoxing a Moroccan with his silly mirror. Griots didn't just entertain, they taught sheet, and your name's Mud, trade fair, and you're a legend. You're hearing echoes of those drum signals from the river, now woven into song. He is singing of a Wangara trader, maybe the one with that gold dust pouch ages ago, who outsmarted a cheat with a clever knot signal. The chora's notes ripple, blending with the market's hum, camels grunting, sandals shuffling. The griot's tale shifts to a caravan, bells jingling, lost in a sandstorm but saved by a starry-eyed guide. It's the same trek you took, and you're nodding, feeling the dunes again. Griots kept the silent barter spirit alive, linking markets to Mali's soul. You spot a kid nearby, wide-eyed, soaking in the story, maybe dreaming of trading someday. It's powerful, this passing of wisdom without a scroll. The crowd's quiet, faces lit by firelight, and you're hooked. The words painting a desert clearing under stars. The griot waves a staff, its tiny feather bobbing. You're seeing the trade unfold salt slabs. A red pebble, a deal saved by trust. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some griots carried small, carved staffs, topped with a tiny camel or feather. It's props to act out trade scenes, like medieval action figures. You're picturing a wooden camel, worn smooth, dangling from a griot's hand as he sings. Historians still argue whether these staffs were just theatrics or held ritual power, a debate that keeps griots' roles mysterious. Seriously, though, these storytellers were Mali's glue. You're leaning forward, the fire's warmth on your face as the griot's voice softens, singing of trust the kola nut offerings, the knotted cords. The market's piles fade into the background, but they're part of this tale, each one a chapter. You're sinking into the rhythm, the chorus strings pulling you deeper, the griot's words a bridge to the past. You're hooked, aren't you? Waiting for the next verse, wondering what trade legend he'll spin next. Now let's step away from the goods and listen to the griots. Mali's storytellers, whose tales of trade wove the silent barter into legend. You're about to hear their words sung, not spoken, carrying stories of gold, trust, and trickery that kept this system alive in Mali's heart. It's a new layer, and you're ready to lean in. The risks were Rio sand and gold, swapped slabs, stolen goods, but the system survived, held by shared honor. You're sinking into the scene, the piles of salt and copper glowing faintly, each one a gamble. You're hooked, aren't you? Watching for the next deal, wondering if it'll hold true or hide a trick. But the feather's crooked, maybe a rushed fake. Cheating wasn't just theft. It was betrayal, cracking the trust we saw by the Niger. You're starting to see why those kola nut offerings felt sacred. They weren't just gestures. They were pleas for honesty. A woman trader passes, her cloth pile pristine, her green cord perfectly knotted. She's not risking her rep, and you respect the hustle. Historians still argue whether these scams were rare or rampant, a debate that questions how trust held the system together. The clay figurine in your pocket feels like a steady companion, its etched lines tying you to the city's quiet deals, red pebbles, green cords and all. The sun's lower, casting long shadows across a pile of salt slabs, marked with a black pebble. But here, cheating was high stakes. You're imagining a Wangara trader, his face tight, sifting a gold pouch and cursing under his breath as sand spills out. He's not yelling silence reigns, but you bet he's plotting revenge. The system fought back. Traders spread word of cheats through griots or drum signals, blacklisting them. You're picturing a cynic merchant robbed of his ivory, sending a sharp drumbeat to remember those rhythms to warn others. It's justice Mali style, quiet but brutal. You're eyeing it suspiciously. Something's off. Top slab looks smaller, maybe swapped by a sly trader hoping no one notices. You're tempted to lift it, but the market's rules keep your hand still. Nearby, a pile of copper bars has a knotted cord, 2 loops, not 3, looking hastily tied, like someone covered their tracks. It's tense, like spotting a fake bill in your wallet. Now, let's get real about the risks in this system, because even in a world built on trust, not everyone played nice. You're about to uncover the tricks and cheats that threaten silent barter, from sneaky swaps to outright theft. It's a shadier side of Mali's markets, and you're peering into the shadows. Here's a core fact. Silent barter's reliance on trust made it vulnerable to cheating with some traders in Mali's markets. From the 10th century onward, shortchanging goods or stealing piles when no one was watching. You're crouching in Timbuktu's market now, the air thick with dust and the faint tang of roasted kola nuts. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried sneaking sand into a deal today, you'd probably get a 1-star Yelp review. You're fingering that clay figurine, its smooth edges calming your nerves. Here's another light jab. If your coworker pulled this, you'd hide their stapler for a month. You're still in Timbuktu's market, the evening air cooling. The suspicious salt slab with its crooked red feather lingering in your mind like a warning. Here's a core fact. Griots, hereditary storytellers in Mali since at least the 10th century, preserve trade histories through oral tales, often singing of silent barters, heroes, and cheats to teach its value. You're sitting now, cross-legged on a woven mat near Timbuktu's market edge. The air rich with the scent of baked clay and distant cook fires. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried singing your work emails, you'd probably get some weird replies. But griots made trade epic. You're fingering that clay figurine. Its lines like a griot's story etched in earth. Here's another light jab. If your history teacher was a griot, you'd never nap in class. You're still sitting on that woven mat in Timbuktu of the griots. Cora notes, fading, his tale of the clever Wangara trader and her knotted cord lingering like a warm echo. The clay figurine in your pocket feels alive, as if it's soaking up the market stories alongside you. Each camel could haul up to 400 pounds, making them desert workhorses. Now for a quirky tidbit, some camel drivers hung tiny brass charms on their animals' harnesses, shaped like stars or crescents, to ward off bad luck or bandits. You're spotting one now, a crescent charm, jingling on a camel's neck, catching the moonlight. A faint drumbeat rolls in those trade signals again, maybe a clearing nearby. Seriously though, these trains powered Mali's empire. You're nearing the clearing now, the sand flattening, a few acacias looming, and conducted silent barter, swapping goods like ivory and cloth under strict rules of silence. These stops were neutral ground, vital for survival. The air smells of damp earth and sweet dates, a relief after the desert's dryness. Your camels tethered nearby, munching thorny scrub, its bell silent for once. The clearing's busy but hushed piles of goods the ground. Millet baskets, indigo cloth, a lone ivory tusk. You're eyeing a salt pile, marked with a green feather, its slabs smaller than the ones you hauled. You set down your copper bars, adding a knotted cord 3 loops. Wanger styland, step back, heart thumping. It's like leaving a note and hoping for a reply, for a quirky tidbit. Some traders left date pits in patterns like a circle or line beside their piles. A quirky signal of quantity or a nod to the oasis's life-giving trees. But here, it's serious business. You're watching a Berber trader, his turban, dusty, inspect your copper. He adds a bundle of dried fish, sets a line of date pits 5, precise and retreats. Seriously though, oases were Mali's lifelines, turning barren roots into trade hubs. You're standing, brushing sand off your robe, the stars sharp above. The fish pile's date pits gleam, and you're wondering if the deal's fair. The oasis hums with silent energy, each pile a promise under the palms. You're hooked, aren't you, waiting for the next move in this shaded clearing, the desert's calm pulling you deeper into its wordless dance. No eye contact, no haggling. You're picturing the Niger River's rafts where similar deals floated under painted stones. The oasis's rhythm is slow, deliberate, like the caravan's plod, and you're sinking into it, the palm shade soothing your sunburned shoulders. You're spotting a neat row of pits near a stack of cola nuts, glinting in the moonlight. A soft drumbeat rolls in those trade signals again, maybe from another caravan nearing the oasis. The trust we saw by the river holds here, but you're thinking of Timbuktu's cheats, the sand and gold trick. You check your copper pile, ensuring no one swapped it for junk. The oasis feels safe. It's water and shade, a shared bond, but you're cautious. You spot a woman trader, her cloth pile marked with a zigzag pattern like the one at the oasis before, her presence steadying the scene. Historians still argue whether these pits were just markers or carried a deeper cultural meaning, perhaps a thanks to the land. The camels slow, their bells fading, and you're ready to unload. Maybe set a knotted cord or pebble. The Sahara's vastness wraps around you, but the caravan's purposed raid, connection keeps you grounded. You're hooked, aren't you? Eager to lay out these goods and see what the silent barter brings next. The camels grumble, and you're wondering how anyone kept them in line without losing it. The clay figurine in your pocket, tetched in warm feels, like a quiet witness to the griot's tales and the heavy trek you just survived. The air's crisp, smelling of dry sand and faint acacia, and you're ready to set up a silent barter. Let's linger at an oasis stop, where traders pause to rest and deal, their goods piled in the shade of palms. You're about to dive into the quiet exchanges that happen here, a midway point in Mali's vast trade network. The train's not just about goods, it's trust, like the cola nut offerings by the river. You're imagining a cheat sand in the gold, like we saw in Timbuk, turuning this load's value. But but the charm's jingle soothes you, and you're sinking into the desert's pulse. The stars guiding your way like they did for centuries. Historians still argue whether these charms were superstition or a practical way to mark trusted caravans, a debate that adds a mystic vibe to the trek. The firelight dances on the piles of salt and manuscripts nearby, their red and black pebbles glinting. Now, let's hit the desert again, this time guiding a camel train heavy with trade goods. But these drivers were pros. You're watching a Sun Inc. guide, his turban loose, checking a camel's load to ensure the copper bars don't slip. He adjusts a knot to loops, like the Wangara's Kodan moves on. The train's a lifeline, carrying goods that'll feed Timbuktu's markets or reach the Niger's rafts. You're noticing a salt slab wobbling, and you steady it, feeling its gritty weight. It's the same salt we saw ages ago, worth its weight in gold, and you're proud to keep it safe. You're leading a string of grumbling beasts, their loads swaying as you trek toward a silent Barter clearing.
Aye.
It's dusty, it's tough, and you're about to feel the weight of every step. Here's a core fact. Camel trains, often dozens strong, were the backbone of Mali's trade from the 9th century. Carrying heavy goods like salt slabs, copper, and cloth across the Sahara to silent barter sites. You're trudging through the Sahara, the sand cool underfoot, the night sky a blanket of stars. The camels plod ahead, their breath huffing, each loaded with salt slabs tied with rough cord. Your hands grip a lead rope, and you're dodging a camel's spit gross, but you're learning fast. The air smells of dry dust and animal musk, and that brass charm's jingle mixes with the soft crunch of sand. You're tired, your shoulders aching, but the caravan's rhythm's slow, steady keeps you moving. You're picturing the clearing ahead where you'll unload these goods, maybe with a red feather like the ones we've seen. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried leading camels to your day job, you'd probably get a few HR complaints. You're fingering that clay figurine, its edges smooth, a quiet link to the Griot's tales of trade. Here's another light jab. If your commute had camels, you'd never miss leg day. You're at the edge of that desert clearing now, the camel train's brass crescent charm still jingling faintly. The salt slabs and copper bars unloaded under the starlight. Here's a core fact. Oases, scattered across the Sahara, were critical trade hubs from the 9th century, where caravans rested. You're sitting in the oasis's shade, a palm's fronds rustling overhead, the sand cooled beneath you. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried silent barter at a rest stop, you'd probably end up with someone's leftover fries. You're fingering that clay figurine, its lines a faint echo of the date pit's patterns. Here's another light jab. If your coffee break was this quiet, you'd actually get some peace. You're still at that oasis, the palm fronds whispering overhead. The pile of dried fish, with its neat row of date pits, sitting quietly beside your copper bars and their knotted cord. The clay figurine in your pocket smooth and etched feels like a talisman, linking you to the desert's rhythms and Timbuktu's bustling markets, and salt into cities like Timbuktu and Gao, making the empire a West African superpower. Its trade networks reached Europe and the Middle East. The barter, piles millet, cloth, ivory dote the clearing, each a spark in Mali's engine. You're imagining Timbuktu's mosques, their minarets gleaming, funded by the same gold dust you saw weighed with cola seeds ages ago. A camel grunts nearby, its brass charm jingling, a faint echo of the caravan's bells. The oasis feels small, but it's a cog in a machine that made Mali mighty. You're picturing gold dust reaching a Venetian mint, stamped into coins, all starting from a desert pile with a red feather. The empire's impact wasn't just wealth. It was culture mosques, universities, griots, songs. The barter pile's ivory, cola nuts, clothed at the clearing, but your eyes are on a new pile. Copper bars, marked with a green feather and a small pile of beads. But in Mali, faith was glue. A camel's grunt breaks the quiet, its brass charm jingling. And you're thinking of the caravans that carried Islam alongside salt? Faith shaped the silent barter, making trust a duty, not a gamble. You're picturing a trader swearing an oath under these same stars, his words soft but binding. The oasis feels holy now, its palms swaying like they're listening. You spot a new pile millet, with a knotted cord and a single bead. It's a small gesture, but it carries weight, tying the deal to something bigger. You're picturing a mosque in Timbuktu, its courtyard bustling with traders like the ones with those mirrors, all bound by Islam's rules. Seriously though, Islam's role was profound. You're standing, brushing sand off your robe, the stars pulsing above. The oasis's deals, from date pits to prayer beads, hum with a quiet sanctity, each pile a testament to trust. You're sinking into the scene, the desert's calm, blending with faith's steady rhythm, slow, warm, eternal. You're hooked, aren't you? Watching these sacred swaps, wondering how they held Mali's markets together. Honesty wasn't just nice, it was sacred. You're noticing the copper pile again, its beads untouched, the deals still open. The trust we saw by the Niger, those kola nut offerings, feels tied to this faith, a belief that cheating could anger more than just your trade partner. You're tempted to touch the beads, but you respect the vibe. You're imagining a trader, his robe crisp, pausing to pray before setting his goods, his faith guiding his hands. Islam didn't just spread religion, it built bridges, letting Berbers, Wangara, and Sinink trade with a shared moral code. You're hearing a faint call to prayer rolling from a nearby village, its cadence soothing. You spot a new pile of manuscripts, tied with string, a nod to Timbuktu's scholars. Silent Barter built that, too, trading ideas as easily as salt. Silent Barter didn't just move goods. It built empires, turning nomads into merchants and villages into markets. Seriously though, Mali's trade was transformative. The clay figurine in your pocket touched and grounding feels like a piece of that legacy, linking the oasis's deals to Timbuktu's grandeur, with traders often swearing oaths to Allah to uphold fair deals. Mosques became trade hubs too. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some Muslim traders left small prayer beads beside their goods, not as barter, but as a sign of sincerity, like a holy handshake. You're picturing a string of wooden beads resting near a salt slab, their polish catching the moonlight. Historians still argue whether these beads were purely symbolic or a subtle nudge for divine oversight, a debate that keeps faith's role intriguing. Now let's explore a hidden force in Silent Barter. Religion. You're about to see how Islam shaped the trust that kept these wordless deals honest, weaving faith into the knots and pebbles of Mali's markets. It's a spiritual layer to this quiet world, and you're stepping into its gentle glow. You're standing, brushing dust off your robe, the stars bright above the palms. The oasis hums with quiet deals, each pile a piece of Mali's legacy. You're sinking into the scene, the desert's calm, blending with the empire's pulse steady, vast, powerful. You're hooked, aren't you, seeing how these silent swaps shaped a world, wondering what's left of their mark. You're picturing a Sinink farmer, his fields thriving because salt and copper flowed south, all thanks to those wordless deals by the Niger. Now for a quirky tidbit, Somali villages built small mud brick trade shrines near barter sites, where traders left offerings like millet or feathers to bless deals. But Mali's trade was tight. You're noticing the fish pile again, its date pits untouched, the deals still pending. That trust we so cool nut offerings, knotted cords, kept the system humming, linking oases to Timbuktu's streets. The empire grew because everyone, from women weavers to camel drivers, played a part. You're thinking of the griots' tales, singing of traders who became legends. Mali's wealth drew outsiders, those Moroccan merchants, with their mirrors spreading its fame to Cairo and Venice. You're picturing a tiny shrine, its walls cracked, a single ostrich feather tucked inside, glowing in the dusk. Historians still argue whether these shrines were spiritual or just morale boosters for weary traders, a debate that keeps Mali's soul alive. Now, let us step back and see the bigger picture. How Silent Barter reshaped Mali's empire, turning villages into powerhouses and gold into global influence. You're about to feel the ripple effects of these quiet deals from the Sahara to the world beyond. It's a grand view, and you're standing at its edge. Here is a core fact. Silent Barter fueled Mali's economic rise from the 9th to 15th centuries. Channeling wealth from gold, you're walking the oasis now, sandals crunching on sandy paths, the air cool with the scent of water and dates. Let's slip in a joke. If your side hustle powered an empire, you'd probably still forget to file taxes. You're fingering that clay figurine, its lines like a map of Mali's reach. Here's another light jab. If your group chat funded an empire, you'd probably just get memes. You're still at the oasis, the manuscript pile with its string tie catching the starlight. Yes. a quiet reminder of Mali's empire-building trade. Here's a core fact. Islam, spreading across Mali by the 10th century, reinforced silent Barter's trust through shared values of honesty and charity. You're sitting under a palm now, the oasis air, cool, smelling of damp sand and faint incense from a distant fire. Let's toss in a joke. If you tried sealing deals with prayer beads today, you'd probably just get a weird eBay rating. You're fingering that clay figurine. Its lines like a whisper of the Griot's tales. Here's another light jab. If your Zoom calls had this faith, no one would mute their mic. You're still at the oasis, the prayer beads by the copper pile catching the moonlight. Their quiet presence tying Mali's silent Barter to the faith you just felt. The clay figurine in your pocket, etched and worn, feels like a relic of the trust that Islam reinforced. Linking this clearing to Timbuktu's mosques. Now let's face the twilight of this system. You're about to witness the slow decline of silent Barter, as new trade methods and empires shifted Mali's world. It's a bittersweet turn, and you're standing in the fading glow of a once thriving tradition. A camel grunts, its brass charm soft, and you're remembering the caravans that powered Mali's empire. But European ships, docking in West Africa, brought coins and guns, changing the game. You spot a new pile cloth, no marker, just a careless heap. It's a sign of change, the old code slipping. The Barter piles are quiet very, a lone salt slabbed, their green feather barely stirring. But Mali's legacy holds. You're thinking of the women weavers, their zigzag patterns, and the prayer beads by the copper pile's maul axe that built an empire. The system's decline didn't erase its mark. It's in the markets, the stories, the way a trader pauses before a deal. You're seeing the desert clearing again, that first gold pouch with its red feather and feeling its weight across centuries. You're lying back, the sand cradling you, the stars above Mali's desert, smudging into a quiet glow. The piles of salt, gold, and cola nuts dissolve, their stories told, their trust carried forward in Griot's songs and market nods. Your breath slows, matching the desert's rhythm, steady, warm, eternal. The clay figurine rests in your hand, its weight a final whisper of a world that thrived in silence. Let the cool air brush your skin, the distant hum of wind lull your thoughts. You're drifting, safe in the arms of history, the legacy of silent Barter carrying you to rest. Sleep now, deeply under the desert's watchful stars. The oasis is still, the stars soft, and you're sinking into the memory of a world that traded in silence. You're imagining Griots today, their voices carrying tales of the gold dust you weighed, the camel bells you followed. Silent Barter taught trust, patience, a way of moving through the world without clash. You're picturing Timbuktu's manuscripts, preserved despite the system's decline, their pages whispering of salt and faith. The legacy isn't just history, it's a mindset, a quiet strength in Mali's soul. You're picturing a woman weaver, her zigzag patterns ignored, her goods now priced in metal. The faith, the silence, the trustees unraveling, and you're feeling the loss, like a favorite book missing its last chapter. A camel's low grunt fades, its brass charm silent. And you're picturing the Niger's rafts, the Timbuktu bustle, all tied by trust. Silent Barter's legacy isn't loud, it's in the pause, the nod, the choice to connect without words. You're wondering if you'd have lasted in that world, leaving goods under moonlight, trusting the unseen. The desert's hush wraps you, calm and deep, its lessons lingering like a dream. Here's a core fact. Silent Barter began fading in Mali by the 16th century. As direct trade, coin economies. Seriously though, the decline was real. You're standing, brushing sand off your robe, the stars dimmer somehow. The oasis's piles are still there, but the magic's fading, the date pits and feathers, relics of a quieter time. You're sinking into the scene. The desert's hush now heavy with change, the empire's pulse slowing. You're hooked, aren't you? Watching the system slip away, wondering what it left behind in Mali's heart. And European influence grew, reducing the need for wordless exchanges. The clay figurine in your pocket, etched and warm, anchors you to the world of knotted cords. Red feathers and prayer beads now slipping away. Its principles shaped regional commerce. Now for a quirky tidbit, some modern Malian markets use silent nods during haggling, It's a subtle nod to the old system where a tilt of the head seals a deal without words. You're picturing a vendor in Bamako nodding over a pile of cola nuts, a faint echo of the Wangara's code. Historians still argue whether these nods are a direct descendant or just coincidence. A debate that keeps the system's influence alive. Let's linger here, reflecting on the lasting mark of this wordless trade, its legacy woven into Mali's culture and beyond. You're about to trace the echoes of silent barter, from desert clearings to modern memory, and let it lull you into a gentle close. The barter pile's millicloth ivory are sparser, the green feather on the copper pile looking lonely. But here the shift was slow. You're watching a sonning trader, his face tight, inspect a cola nut pile. He adds copper, but hesitates, glancing at a Moroccan with a coin. Purse new money, new rules. The trust we saw, those prayer beads and cola nut offerings, couldn't compete with faster deals. You're thinking of the griots, their songs now mourning lost traditions, like the camel bells fading on your trek. The oasis feels quieter, the deal's less certain, as if the desert itself knows the end is near. You're imagining a Wangara trader, his robe frayed, setting down gold dust, but hearing voices in the distance, new merchants, bargaining loudly. The silence you loved, those knotted cords and date pits, feels fragile. You're picturing Timbuktu's markets, once quiet, now buzzing with coin and chatter, the red pebbles replaced by scales and shouts. It's jarring, like your favorite cafe turning into a chain. Cities like Timbuktu stayed strong, but the system lost ground. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some traders clung to old ways, leaving tiny clay tokens like miniature versions of your figurine as nostalgic markers, even when haggling became common. You're picturing a small clay disc, half buried near a salt pile, a stubborn nod to the past. Historians still argue whether this decline was driven more by foreign markets or internal shifts. A debate that keeps the system's end cloudy. You're sitting in the oasis now, the air cool, smelling of damp earth and fading cook fires. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried silent barter in a modern mall, you'd be drowned out by the food court. You're fingering that clay figurine, its lines a faint echo of those nostalgic tokens. Here's another light jab. If your group chat went silent, you'd probably assume it crashed. You're still at the oasis, the sparse piles of cloth and millet casting faint shadows. The clay token you imagined half buried near the salt feeling, like a ghost of the silent barter-s fading days. Here, essay core fact. Silent barter-s legacy endures in Mali's oral traditions, with griots still singing of its trust and ingenuity. Influencing West African trade practices into the 21st century, you're sitting under a palm, the oasis air soft, smelling of cool sand and distant jasmine. Let's slip in a joke. If you tried a silent nod at a car dealership, you'd probably drive off with a lemon. You're fingering that clay figurine one last time, its lines like a final griots verse. The night's grown softer now, the oasis fading into a gentle blur.